We're going to have a great practice tomorrow, and then we're going to go upstairs, and I'm going to watch practice and watch Krista win, and I'm going to turn around and watch Grant win. Man, it's going to be a fun day tomorrow to be a Texas Tech Red Raider, and, man, I can't wait and wish them the best of luck, and I know they're ready to roll. So with that, we can open up with football questions.
Well, before we get to that, let's ask one more. You went up to Wichita for the first time that you were able to see a March Madness game. What was that like, and what was it like being able to hug Grant as they left the hotel and to just give him a little more encouragement as they head?
That was cool. It was a great moment. You know, it's one of the deals. I've never been able to or had the opportunity to do that, just because it's usually that first weekend is usually when you start spring ball and you've got a scrimmage or a practice on that Saturday. So it was great to go up there. The fans were absolutely incredible, especially on Saturday. And, it was a lot of fun. I'm proud of those guys. I know they got a lot left to do and want to do, but it was fun to be a part of it. I told him there was a couple times in that second game I became a fan, and I had to check myself a couple of times because I think we threw up a 3, and I was like, all right, my two bigs have got 41 of our 45 points. Let's just pound the paint. Like, what are we doing here? And he started laughing at me. He said, yeah, I heard that a couple times. So it was fun to be a part of.
Back to football. What did this first day of hitting show you from this team?
It was a good day. You know, we really shortened the field. It was all red zone. I thought there was some really good runs. The offensive line cleaned some, had some really clean runs, and then I thought there was times that the defensive line dominated. It kind of went back and forth. It was really good to see because, offense would win here and defense would win, back and forth. We are bigger, size-wise. That's evident. And whenever you have a 6'9" tight end and Mason Tharp come out and go, first thing out of his mouth is, Coach, we're a lot bigger football team, then that kind of tells you we are because he's a big man. There's a lot of stuff to learn from, a lot of stuff to teach from. We'll have a team meeting today at 2:15, and, I'll start off with practice habits, and there'll be some really good tape to learn from of, like, how you're supposed to practice. But I was happy. I was happy with the physicalness of the practice, especially coming off I've never been a part of doing spring ball, spring break, and then spring ball. And so I liked it. I think it's at the end of it, I think it's going to be good because it breaks it up a little bit. But I was happy where we're at.
So there was no letdown, of discipline or anything, from a week off, and then you come back and you have to go back and hitting again.
The first day of pads, it's always kind of a little bit different because, when we were stretching, I said, okay, the underwear Olympics is over now. We got pads on and we're actually playing football. And so I think guys that love contact and love playing football, they were excited about yesterday. But the energy was great. That was a challenge to the coaches to make sure that we were bringing it, and then a challenge to the older guys. And, I thought it went well. A lot of work to do, a lot of work to get in. You could see at times the guys thinking, because there's so much new, and so you could see at times where the challenge is to cut it loose and be okay with making the mistake. We can correct it. We talk about installing effort every single day and just getting those guys to remember, you're going to make a mistake, cut it loose right now. Because you could see some stuff yesterday to where first day of pads, they've been getting the calls, getting lined up, and not having to hit someone. And now all of a sudden they're getting the calls, they're getting lined up, everything was great, ball snapped. Now you got to block a 320-pound nose guard, while you're doing that. And he's coming off the football and vice versa. So I thought it was good. I thought the discipline was good, but a lot of things we got to get better at.
So who was the winner, if you could pick a couple players on offense and defense? Who won yesterday?
I thought all three running backs had very decisive runs. Adam Hill's doing a great job too, but I thought there were some really put your foot in the ground, get vertical. we kind of call it the dirty four, to where every run's not going to be a touchdown. So you got to be willing to get in there and get dirty. And so I thought Jacoby Williams had a great run like that. I thought that T.J. West showed up a couple times of making contested ball catches on balls. Amir Boyd has showed up, in the secondary. Lee Hunter is really hard to block. I think that's good for our centers. Sheridan Wilson and Carter are both getting reps at center and guard, and so I think that has been really good. And then Romello Height is so sudden, and then Howard Sampson is just such a large human being. Those are just some guys. I know I'm missing some guys, but, man, those are some guys that really showed up yesterday.
Coach, I know you've talked a little bit about already the, that ongoing, I don't know if you'd even say discussion, but the kind of the exchange you had with Dion on Twitter about the spring practice deal. And I was listening to Joel Klatt the other day, and he said that back when he was playing, by the time spring ball is over, players are just tired of practicing against each other and want to play against somebody else. As far as guys, with it getting monotonous of just practicing against each other, have you ever noticed that happening, when you've been coaching? And I guess, how do you avoid that?
Yeah, it's tough. You get it. It's even worse in the fall. I mean, if you think about it, we're the only level of football that doesn't have a scrimmage. In high school, you're going to have a scrimmage before you play the first game. You got preseason games and joint practices in the NFL, and then you've got a month-long camp in college football to where you're against each other. And so it's a little bit different because with this, we're going every other day, so you can kind of break it up. It's usually that week 3, so really going into next week, about midweek is whenever kind of it does kind of get to a point where they've hit the wall. So you just got to challenge. You got to create some chaos in practice. Sudden change to where they've got to really be moving. And I agree with Dion. He said it last year in the Big 12 meetings, and he's brought it up again, and I know he's pushing for it. I think it would be good, to have, at the very least, have a joint practice, whether it's A&M or Texas or OU or, or whether we're traveling. And you could do it to where, I heard Mike Gundy talk about Bedlam and do it twice. I don't know if I want to do it twice, but he had a great idea. But I do think you could do it every other year. Like if we went to College Station this year and they came to us next year and, had a day to where you had a couple practices against each other, I think it'd be great.
And you've mentioned waivers. I'm sure those get filed with the NCAA, right?
Right.
What all kind of language or what all needs to be included in those waivers that you would feel like would maybe kind of best suit getting the go-ahead for something like that?
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting because this is something that's totally out of the box whenever it comes to college football, and which everything in the last couple of years has been out of the box. But I think it's definitely something. One of the biggest verbiage or what you're going to have is controlled. I would, being a high school coach for so long and having so many scrimmages, I would definitely not want to have it to where my quarterback gets hit, so the quarterbacks are not live. I heard Gundy talk yesterday a little bit about like thud practices. That's what we had yesterday, was a thud practice to where we're trying to keep everybody up. So what you're talking about a lot is player safety. Well, if you're going to get somebody else, it's going to be safer than going against each other every single day because, you're cutting down to where the injuries are Texas Tech versus Texas Tech at the very least right there. But I think it has to be that. And then you have to be really smart, I think, who you scrimmage and get them to understand exactly how you want it to go. I've been in scrimmages to where it's I scrimmaged Sam Harrell for 7 years straight. And it was the best scrimmages I've ever been a part of. We knew what we wanted to get out of it. It was very controlled. We turned up the heat when we needed to. And then I've been in scrimmages, too, to where, like, this is somebody's Super Bowl and it went over the top, and you see some of that in the NFL with the fights and stuff like that. I think for us, you'd have to be, I think the player safety has got to be in that waiver, but you also got to be really smart who you're going to scrimmage.
And last one for me. I asked Coach Ayu about the 3 edge rushers that y'all brought in last year, Chetta, Charles, and Eddie. He said he didn't really have an expectation for them, or like he more of alluding to they needed to set that for themselves. I guess when you think about those guys, what do you want to see from them that would maybe show you that they could have a role even in such a deep room that they're in?
Yeah, the biggest thing with young guys is to have the confidence to turn it loose. I sent a video. I do this when I'm watching film to guys all the time of practice. I sent a voted video to Chetta last night, and he's running the counter down from the backside. He's turned loose to where he can run the hill line. And, man, he looks like so explosive. And I understood what he was trying to do, because if you're not, when you're talking about the tempo that we were in was a thud, anytime you're at an angle to where you're going to take a shot, a profile shot, or you're coming from behind, we have them tag off because we don't want to hurt one of our own players. And he was hesitant right there instead of just running through. And some of it's kind of a little bit of young guys of human nature, but that's what they need to do. I mean, you see flashes. Eddie and Charles are such big human beings. I mean, one's 6'5", one's 6'5.5", one's 270 something, one's 282. And so you see flashes, consistency, but just be okay with making a mistake. Just turn it loose. Like, don't make it be to you're not giving the effort, or that you're hesitant because you're scared to make a mistake. That's really with all the young players, but that's what I really want to see out of them.
There's been a lot of high praise from Mitch from players and coordinators, but I guess considering where he looks right now on the depth chart with Barron and Will possibly ahead of him, I guess what was the pitch to him when he came here of why Tech was the spot to be?
I think one of the biggest things is what we needed out of that position. Him being a mature guy that's played a lot of football, being out of football last year, wanting to come into a really positive situation. And then the style of offense, I think, was really important. He has been, more than I ever could have asked for from the standpoint of his leadership, the way he approaches his day-to-day. And then it doesn't surprise me, but a great eval by Mac. Here's a guy that found Cam Ward. Just a great eval out of Mac because he can sling it, man. He's got juice. He can run. He's got some ability, and he's a guy that's showing up real quick. That if somebody's helmet came off and he had to go in the game, then he'd be ready to go. And he's played a lot of football and won football games in the Power 4 games.
Obviously, you don't wish for either of you two guys ahead of him to ever get hurt, but if they're healthy the whole season, where do you see him fitting in terms of playing time, or is he kind of a bit of a sideline coach?
I think he's going to bring a lot to that room about prep. I think with him and Barron being older, they can bounce a lot of stuff off of each other. He's been a real mentor, I think, to Will. They've spent a lot of time together. And with him, you get him in where you can, and then you turn around. We haven't done this yet, and Jack does such a great job with holding and stuff like that, but trying to throw him in there with some of that too on special teams. But, yeah, you're hoping that you're not you're hoping you're playing him. It's just that you're hoping you're playing him because you're, got up on people when you're trying to get a lot of people in the game.
And then I know last year you experimented a time or two with players on both sides of the ball. Have you been doing that at all in spring practice?
No, just because everything's so new. We're offensively it's so much similar, but the verbiage is different. So, really trying to get those guys to focus in on what they're doing there. And then on the defensive side of the ball, there's a lot of different verbiage-wise, and so getting those guys to focus, just really learning, picking up the system so we can go out and play fast and be aggressive.
Joey, the practice that y'all had postponed, y'all moved that to Just
Yeah,
trying to
it's
remember.
3 weeks. So what we wanted to do is keep this week the normal week. Next week we're going to have our coaches clinic. So we don't scrimmage during the coaches clinic. We practice. I mean, I was always a coach that I didn't want to come watch somebody scrimmage. I wanted to watch them practice. So we make sure we have a really good practice for those guys and a lot of situational practice. And then that next week, going into the second scrimmage, we'll add a Monday, and kind of decide what kind of practice that is. Do we go helmets and spiders and do it like the first couple practices, or do we come back out and – because that'd be a heavy week if we go pads, going into that last scrimmage for the spring game.
I remember, and I think some coaches do this. I remember Spike doing it a few times, having the 15th practice on the Monday after the spring game, so you could watch spring game film and then go back and correct in the final practice of spring. Have you ever done that, or?
No, it's a great idea. I haven't. The the portal opens up the 16th. I think the 19th is a spring game, and then we'll spend that next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with. We'll already have some meetings going into that, but having really sit down and see where everybody's head is, and then the coaches will get out on the road recruiting, and then I'll, make sure that we keep everybody on the roster that we need to keep, and make sure everybody graduates that are graduating this spring and finishing finals really strong.
Y'all have a basketball team working in your facility?
Yeah, they came up. It was awesome. They came in the weight room and got a lift in. Was able to go down there and talk to those guys and tell them congrats and then talk to Grant a little bit. And then they came up and used the small team room to watch some film. And it was good. And I told Grant a couple weeks ago. I said, man, anything we have over here that can help you get ready, as far as recovery or anything like that, man, you're more than welcome to come over. And they just needed somewhere to watch the film. So it was great to see them, man. I know everybody's fired up. I know everybody's ready to go to San Francisco, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
What else what did you ask Josh what he did on his spring break? What did you do with your spring break?
So it was Debbie's birthday, so we went to Vegas for a couple days and then came home and from there flew to Kansas and watched the game. So that was kind of our spring break, and it was a lot of fun, man. It was both trips were really good. I didn't win any money, but both trips were really good.
Hey, I noticed on the roster you have Charlie Robinson listed with the linebackers now, which, of course, he had 100-some-odd tackles at Coronado. Did y'all decide that, or did he want to play defense?
He came in. There's a group of these guys who kind of talked about it before of whenever we have to go to the roster of 105, where does everybody fit? And he knows that his fit is on special teams. And so he was like, Coach, number one, if I'm going through tackling drills and tackling every day more than I would be just special teams wise, it's only going to help me. The other thing too is he's probably, I don't know exactly where he was his heaviest, but he's probably lost 20 to 25 pounds from this. I think he's like 220 to 225 right now, and a lot of that was I can make the team also if I can lean up and improve my speed and help on special teams. So whenever he said that, our numbers were in good shape to where we were able to do that, so we did it. That's why we did it.
And I think that made me think of something else too. Okay, he played linebacker in high school. He's played tight end the time he's been here. Now linebacker, special teams. How much can guys help themselves, or how much of a factor could it be when you're fighting to be in the 105 to be able to play different positions, like you alluded to, looking for a kicker who could also punt?
Right.
How much could that also be a factor with position players who are down the depth chart, just making the 105?
Yeah, it's huge. A guy like Jason Llewellyn, he's in the mix with playing time with the tight ends, but he is a really good. I mean, all he did was deep snap, and we had a kid come out, Ross Majestic, who's a all-pro deep snapper from Jacksonville. He played with Garrett at Baylor, and he came out, and one of his comments to me when we went to dinner after he watched us work out was like, Jason Llewellyn could snap in the NFL for 10 years if that's what he wants to do. And so guys like that can do multiple things. If he wanted to, Baron Morton might be the best punter on the team, and he might be the best field goal kicker on the team. I mean, the dude can do it all. So having guys like that, I mean, you're searching for it. I was actually yesterday, some of my notes was just writing down if so-and-so got banged up, could we, flip them to the other side of the ball to help out. And so we're thinking that way, but I definitely think that the players understand that the more they can do, the better chance to be on the roster.
Is there any other example when you said you're making notes to yourself?
I wasn't, because I don't want to mess with Charlie, but I was thinking about, tight end wise, like yesterday, a couple of O-linemen took some snaps with the fourth group with the tight ends. Case and Long, I probably wouldn't want him to run a lot of routes right now, but, I think he could come and be an inline tight end if we had to, because he's played both sides of the ball. LJ Johnson, if we needed another running back, he's played some running back. So guys like that, you're just kind of thinking like, if somebody gets banged up, who could come in there and help you out? Because the deal is, whenever this comes out, what they're saying is, and I know y'all have read this and know this, but that first game before that first game starts, so probably that Friday, we've got to declare our 105. And once we declare our 105, whatever happens after game one, we have 105. Before game one, if something happens in camp, we could actually bring somebody in or, have the old tryout, walk-on tryout or something like that. But once that first game happens, you've got your 105. So you better, in certain areas, be able to try to cross-train some guys and or at least have some ideas that some guys can do some different things.